were talking about earlier, there's a growing sense of mood music coming out of Westminster that there could be a government U-turn on the winter fuel allowance. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has hinted that she could consider easing the cut to that allowance for millions of pensioners.
Well, someone who hopes that that will be the case is veteran Labour MP Diane Abbott, who has called for the payments to be restored, not just tweaked, but restored in full. And that is not the end of Diane Abbott's criticisms of this current government, of which you are in the party. You are a Labour MP and the mother of the House, because you're the most senior in age of all the female MPs in the House of Commons. It's wonderful to have you on the programme this morning. Where do we start with your criticism of Sir Keir Starmer? I mean, let's talk with the winter fuel allowance, because it looks like there may be a glimmer of hope for people like you who want to change.
Well, one of the things that struck me, colleagues that went to campaign in Runcorn, that was the issue raised on every doorstep. You know, some things cut through. You remember Mrs Thatcher and the poll tax? It just cut through. It wasn't the worst thing she ever did, in my, but it cut through. And I think the winter fuel is like that, because everybody knows an old person, people think of old people as a vulnerable group, and it just wasn't, for the money that Rachel got out of it, it wasn't worth it.
You haven't minced your words in your attack on the Labour Prime Minister, and obviously a lot of loyal Labour MPs, loyal to him, are basically saying, what are you doing so vociferously attacking our leader? What are you doing?
Because you have to speak up for people.
Right.
I've been in Parliament for 37 years, and the one thing I feel very strongly is I have to speak up for people who might not otherwise have a voice. And for instance, the Prime Minister was talking last week about an island of strangers. That upset a lot of my constituents. They don't feel like strangers to each other. They could be from Turkey, they could be from Jamaica, they could be from Bangladesh, but they don't feel like strangers. And people didn't like it. And I spoke up about it, because what's the point of being an MP if you can't speak up for people?
What do you think the impact of that speech has been?
I think it's been very damaging for Keir, actually, unnecessarily damaging. Of course, immigration is an issue, we have to talk about the policy, but people didn't like, allowing to strangers, incalculable damage, all sorts of phrases which were just unnecessary. Talk about immigration in a kind of considered way, talk about how we could change policy, but don't, some of us thought it was like sub-power line. It had a little hint of Enoch Powell, and people didn't like it.
How would you define the Prime Minister? How would you describe him as Prime Minister?
Well, he's done quite well with the international stuff, but basically he's a manager rather than a politician, and very good at being a manager. But being a politician has got to be something else, and he doesn't quite seem to have the something else. I could be wrong.
How many people in the Labour backbenches do you think feel like you do?
I think a lot of people. I think there might not be, left-wing like myself, but, we're Labour people. We're out on the doorstep talking to people. People come up to you in the supermarket and talk to you. And I think people feel that certainly, as I say, the foreign policy stuff is fine, but some things have been misjudged.
So you welcome, for instance, his statement on Israel?
Yes, I do. I think we're heading in the right direction. You can't see those pictures of those poor children and not want an end to the war.
You just described the Prime Minister as a manager. Do you go with those who say that basically he's one of those Labour leaders who doesn't really believe in anything?
You have to remember that Keir didn't join the party till 2014. OK, he was Director of Public Prosecutions. Obviously, he couldn't join the party. So and then the next year he became an MP. So he hasn't come through the Labour movement. And maybe that's why he doesn't appear to have a set of beliefs.
Do you think that he will be Prime Minister at the time of the next general election?
I hope so.
But do you think he will be?
I hope so.
Do you think there is a better person within the Labour front bench, or indeed the party, to be Prime Minister than Keir Starmer at the moment?
Well, there are other people. Angela Rayner's in the papers today.
Do you think he's trying to steal Reform's clothes?
Yes, I think he is. And I think it's very, very unwise, because if you like reforms type of hardline anti-immigrant policy, you're going to vote reform. Why are you going to vote for a second-rate copy?
Do you think he's more frightened of reform than he is of the Tories?
At this point, he thinks that reform are our main opponents. And you have to remember, after the general election, I mean, obviously we've got a very big majority, but there are about, I think, 90 Labour MPs. That reform is number 2. So people are looking over their shoulder at reform.
And if he's looking over his shoulder at the television screen right now and listening to you and watching you, what do you think he's thinking of you?
I think what he's always thought. But, you know, I'm not saying things which other MPs who aren't bold enough to go on the television aren't saying. Well, particularly coming after Runcorn, where people had to knock on doors and hear what people were thinking.
Well, there, of course, is this letter which GMB has seen that's been signed by 100 Labour MPs calling for the kinds of changes that you're talking about here. Did you sign that letter?
This is on benefit cuts.
No, I signed another letter. There are a lot of us signing
more than one.
different. Okay. Oh, there's more than one.
What was your letter? What was that about?
It was the same thing.
Right.
But there's more than one letter. It's all around the welfare stuff, because people are very, I mean, we've got to actually vote on that. And people are very alarmed, because we're talking about immigration this week, but actually the polling shows that the top issue people are concerned about is winter fuel, and then third or fourth is the disability cut.
And if he doesn't change course in the way that you are suggesting, what do you think the outcome will be for Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour government?
There is such a thing as cuts which really kind of make an impact. I don't know if you remember the poll tax for Mrs Thatcher.
Yeah.
Mrs Thatcher did lots of things which I didn't like, but it was the poll tax which upset people.
And you think that this is, the winter fuel payment is Keir Starmer's poll tax?
It could be Keir Starmer's poll tax. And you know, she tried to drive through the poll tax and she was gone within the year.
Even if, very quickly, even if he does do a U-turn, do you think the damage is already done?
I think in some ways the damage has already been done.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty extraordinary, Diane Abbott, to talk to you this morning when you are a member of the same party.
No, but you know what? I am a Labour Party member, but I believe in Labour Party values. And the problem that Keir has at this point is a lot of MPs, but also Labour voters, people who have voted for Labour year in, year out, are a bit worried that Keir is moving away from Labour values.
Okay. Diane Abbott, thank you very much for coming in this morning. We appreciate the conversation.
And we'll put those points to Steve Reid, who is the, you know, he's a front bencher, member of the government.
Yep.
He's the Environment Secretary. He's expecting to be talking about water. I imagine we might be spending a large part of the interview talking about your interview. Thank you very much indeed.
Diane Abbott.